respect. And when Article 19, which guarantees freedom of speech, runs into Article 21, which safeguards the fundamental right to life, then whose right actually prevails? 5 stand-up comedians, including Samay, Raina, have been ordered to now apologize on social media for remarks mocking persons with disabilities. The Supreme Court's order is candid. It says that when you are commercializing speech, you cannot use a community and hurt their sentiments. The Apex Court has asked the comedians to post apologies on their YouTube channels, their podcasts, etc., and reveal the penalties they themselves are willing to bear. Justice Suryakant warns, and I quote, "Today it is disabled, tomorrow something else. Where will all this come to an end?" He also made a critical observation that in the overlap of commercial speech and prohibited speech, you do not have the fundamental right to speak freely. Article 19 cannot overpower Article 21, which means that when rights collide, dignity and respect take precedence over unrestrained expression. The controversy, it started with India's Got Latent, a YouTube show hosted by Samay Raina. In one of the episodes of India's Got Latent, insensitive jokes were made on disabilities. Backlash spread rapidly, with FIRs for obscenity and promoting enmity. Initially focused on vulgarity, the debate soon expanded into portrayal of vulnerable groups and their rights. But this is not just the one case. There are repeated instances, from misogynistic remarks in a YouTube special, which is of course monetized, to political satire that sparked FIRs, to of course jokes mocking disability. India's comedy scene, is how they call it, has repeatedly collided with the law. Take a look at Kunal Kamra, Kaviraj Singh, Ashish Chanchlani, all of these big names caught in the legal tangle. And with the court now saying that if you monetize, if you commercialize, your speech is no longer absolute. In this context, YouTube, podcasts, stand-up specials, they are all commercial. We end up paying money for them. It's business. You hear the comedians talk about it, that, come and buy my tickets, you're lovely for buying my tickets. And Supreme Court's observations may prompt comedians to rethink their satire, take that little bit of an edge off. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Well, that's why we're here to decode and decide that. Satire, dark humor, social commentary, yet what hurts sentiments or demeans communities remains a vague gray zone. So how is free speech interpreted in other democratic countries? Take a look at this. In the United States, the First Amendment protects almost everything. Political speech is quote-unquote sacrosanct. Then take a look at the case of Europe, the European Union. Hate speech is criminalized and balance is sought. In the United Kingdom, free speech ends where defamation begins. So the big questions that we're trying to decode on the show tonight. With red lines now being drawn for commercial speech, will Indian satire be sanitized? A society rightly demanding greater responsibility from those who profit from these public platforms. And to speak more on this, joining me here on the broadcast is Rohan Rajput, actor and social media influencer. Very warm welcome to you, Rohan. Dr. Rajiv Nanda, senior advocate, Supreme Court. Very warm welcome to you, advocate. Sonali Shah, advocate and social activist. Many thanks for joining us here. And Manvi Taneja, actor and activist, also with us on the broadcast. Very warm welcome to the show, Manvi. Rohan, let's get the snowball rolling here. My first question can come to you. If comedy is in fact commercial speech, after the Supreme Court's observations, does that mean that influencers just like yourself, entertainers just like yourself, will now have to censor spontaneity on social media? Because when things go off script, you're bound to push that certain line. And who draws that line and when you cross it is the biggest question we're trying to understand.
Absolutely, absolutely. See, Supreme Court, all the points they have said are absolutely right. But we need to understand one basic thing. Like when you are giving us the right to produce content, right? You gave us that freedom, right? We have that freedom of speech. So my basic point is that there are so many other issues in our such a massively big country. Why only content creators are targeted? I mean, I just would like to just remind this same issue. If you remember, there was a big rape case which happened like a year ago in Kolkata, right? I have been a doctor, so I know I could relate to it because it happened to a doctor. Can anybody tell me what's the justice of that? Can anybody tell me what is the justice of so many girls, so many people who are getting hurt in our country? Why are we only targeting content creators? I'm not saying what is right, what is wrong. Yes, there is a limit to everything. Okay, if I'm creating a content, I need to be, little bit like that. Okay, I should not hurt any sentiment, any community, or anything, right? But as a government should take the responsibility. Please look at the very important matters going on in the country rather than just always targeting the content creators and saying, okay, this person is doing that person is doing that. Please focus on the very, very important issue which is happening in the country, which is stopping us from getting more developed and, competing in the entire world. There are so many issues.
Rohan, at the same point in time, people are constantly saying, let's not draw analogies or equivalencies when you're talking about something like this. Because if you're, let's say, recording a reel tomorrow, and you're recording a content piece, and then you end up, hurting the sentiments of the disabled community or the specially abled community, is that right or wrong? That's the bigger question that we're trying to deal with. When you're talking and highlighting about the West Bengal case, of course, the Supreme Court has done its own job. Various courts have taken suo motu cognizance. The police on the ground, they're trying to do their job. And more importantly, the entire doctors' fraternity got onto the ground and, raised their voice. We all know what happened at the Nabanna with the chief minister, sitting at a proper impasse right across the table with those doctors. We're specifically focused on content, and this is not just about content creators or comedians in general. Anybody who's making a commercial speech, you've got a YouTube special, it's monetized. Shouldn't you be responsible for what's happened? Dr. Rajiv Nanda, senior advocate, Supreme Court, help the viewers understand. We're trying to understand what has come across from the Supreme Court, and constantly we're trying to understand whether improvs, when the gigs go off script, things do tend to go a little bit, beyond that certain red line. Supreme Court says Article 19 cannot overpower Article 21. For the layman out there, even freedom of expression comes with its own reasonable restrictions, doesn't it?
Yes, absolutely. First of all, like said by you that our freedom of speech comes with its restrictions.
Rohan, let Mr. Nanda respond first. We'll come back to you.
Yeah.
See, we are living in a democratic setup, in a democratic country, which guarantees us certain rights. Yes, these certain rights include the right of life, includes the right of freedom of expression and all that. But no right is absolute. This is what the Supreme Court has clarified today. The absoluteness of right will create anarchy, will create disorder in the public. There can be a law and order situation. There can be many innumerable situations. See, the right guaranteed under Article 19(1)(a), that is the freedom of speech and expression, cannot override the right of life. Somebody who's making a content or somebody who's making an article in the newspaper or in a magazine cannot be offending the sentiments and cannot be insulting to somebody. Like,
absolutely.
There has to be reasonableness between the right guaranteed by the Constitution. It cannot be absolute. Now, this reasonableness has to be some proper balancing has to be done. It cannot be that as and when the government wants or the executive wants, they can gag the content creators, or there has to be, but there cannot be a straitjacket formula for it. It will differ, it will vary from situation to situation. The morality, the public order, relationship with public order, the insult to the other community people, or in this case, perhaps the specially abled people, and the relationships with the friendly neighbors. Somebody speaking against Pakistan in a war-like situation is understandable. But when we are having good relationship with a friendly country, somebody offending that relationship, making the foreign dignitaries offend about it. There can be innumerable example about it. So what I'm trying to tell you is that the Supreme Court has also clarified today, which has been always clarified, that the rights guaranteed by the Constitution are basic and fundamental rights. They cannot be gagged. But they also, side by side, there are innumerable judgments. Today is not the first time the Supreme Court has come down with these innumerable judgments. Right from Indian,
these rights are so fundamental, but the intricacies between these rights is always such a gray area for people to navigate and traverse through.
That's what I'm trying to tell you. There cannot be a straitjacket formula for it. everybody has to be conscious.
But then
If you
today
have
inside the
right-
court, Dr. Nanda, the Solicitor General was asked to bring on the table guidelines that can be pushed across to keep this commercial speech in check. Now, what are those guidelines actually going to be? Sonali Shah, advocate and social activist, also with us on the broadcast. Mrs. Shah, help the viewers understand if there is a guideline setup that is put forth. How do we ensure that these guidelines on speech are not vague or misused for censorship tomorrow? Because we do want our comedy shows to go on. We all like our comedians, but we also want to make sure that these comedians don't step across that line or, hurt a community's sentiment. So in that setup and situation, if there is a guideline, how do we make sure that these guidelines aren't very vague, or then these guidelines are later used to misused rather for censorship?
See, the Attorney General of India has sought some time from Honorable Supreme Court to be able to frame the guidelines. And he has also rightly observed that we do not want gag comedians. So I would say Supreme Court in its judgment is not trying to silence the comedians. All it is trying to do is civilize them a bit. So we are not saying that comedy is not okay, but doing comedy out of the sensitivity, that is not okay. Now, talking about the thing that how do you ensure that these guidelines are not vague and just put a reasonable restriction as provided for under the Constitution of India. Now, that is something for which we will have to think for a longer term and look at situations where we can cater to the various areas wherein the freedom of speech is not being affected. We cannot restrict ourselves to one genre of comedy. We will have to create this policy, keeping in mind the long-term impact of it. And yes, obviously, it needs to be specific.
All right.
And that responsibility obviously is on the Attorney General.
That's too big a responsibility on the Attorney General, don't you think so? Manvi Taneja, actor and activist, also with us. Many thanks for patiently waiting. Manvi, do you feel comedy is being unfairly targeted, just like Rohan pointed out? Other industries like the films, even politics, they sometimes get away with harsher speech. Not this time around in the case of Ashish Chanchalani or Ranveer Lalabadia or the India Got Latent fiasco. And when does laughing at someone become punching down, really? With the Supreme Court's observations, should the comedians now self-regulate, or do you fear that this state regulation is going to curb on the creativity? I mean, where do you stand on this particular topic?
Comedians have always been a soft target for few. And I would like to, there's a big question mark that what's the do's and don'ts, that how they go about with their show. See, if you talk about their show, it's only subscription based, and there's set of people who have objection to it. It's a particular lobby who try to raise voice that they are not doing right. But my question is that what should they do, what should they not do? Who will actually clarify what the guidelines are? See, these are subscription based. People, the audience, they buy tickets for the show. It's scripted, and everyone knows the person who's trying to take part in the show, or maybe the audience. Everyone knows what's going around, how the show will go, what is the pattern, how the show will have a flow. So everything they have a mindset, and suddenly some section of society, they have objection to it. But my question here is that they don't have any intention to hurt anyone's feeling. There are other shows on OTT platform, big shows on OTT platform, but people don't have objection to it. If you see that shows, they have double meaning, they crack double meaning jokes. They try to target a certain section of society, but they have supporters. That's why nobody tries to point out. And these people, new fresh talent, when they try to do something and they get popular, in no time, people start having objection to that.
That's another interesting point that you've raised over here.
That's true. Like, we are being soft targeted very easily. Because
why do you say so? Why do you say so? Why do you say so, Rohan?
Because I have myself worked in big OTT platforms. I will not say the name. But like how she said, like big OTT platforms, they have a big, group with them. So nobody can target a big OTT platform for showing double meaning content or adultery content, right? But if I, as a content creator, produce something which I think is not demeaning to anyone can, just target me. Oh, he's wrong, he's wrong. For example, I just made a recent video on Janmashtami about Lord Krishna. I was dressed up as Krishna. I was dancing behind a mandir.
Okay.
So many people told me that why you are wearing a banyan when you are dressed as a Krishna. I think look at the beauty that how I'm looking like Lord Krishna. Why you are targeting only the negative things, you know? So we are unnecessarily being targeted. That is actually a fact.
But if you
Just because
specifically
the
focus,
fact
no,
because you're
you've made a
Indian.
great point. You've made a great point here. But if you specifically focus on what happened on India's Got Latent, are you cool with what Ranveer Alabadia said over there? Because you know, honestly, I've seen a couple of those episodes also. Free. Absolutely anybody can watch. I mean, the subscription models were for the special insiders or behind the scenes of that India's Got Latent. If you specifically look at some of those shows, you know, contestant that was blind, and I understand that the blind contestant or the stand-up comic wanted to be the butt of the joke. He did not have a problem with blind jokes being cracked at that particular contestant, but maybe the larger blind community did not like it. Sometimes there was a comedian who was called on stage, and Samay Raina also asked their father to come up on stage, and then there was a cross question answer with the father also. Maybe inside that studio, maybe inside that particular auditorium, things were cool, but outside things weren't as cool. People did not like how the father was treated. Aren't these things that the comedian can probably change in the post edit? Maybe people who paid the money to come and watch, they got a gist of that experience, but for the larger audience that could have been clipped out.
Sir, I would just simply say this thing. Like, I have been a part of a lot of shows as well, OTTs as well, videos as well, YouTube as well. And I just want to say one thing. If you go to a circus with your family, are you going to watch a lion there? Yes or no? Of course, you want to watch a lion because that's what's the reason you're going to a circus to watch a lion. So, if the people are going to watch a show like that, they know they gotta, encounter such kind of things. First thing. Second thing, all of these things are totally scripted. Nothing is like something happens and I'll be
No. My apologies to interject. That's the point. I've been going through so many I have my favorite comedians too. Everybody's got their favorite lot and pick of comedians. Today, so much of the work is crowd work, which is absolutely off script. It's absolutely off script. I see comedians most of the days, hitching two people together rather than making jokes these days. It's about who's going out on a date with the other person. That's what entertainment does. And I understand that social media and the way people are consuming content, person is going to stand there and make that very type of content, which is why I'm asking that question. Nothing set in stone. If that is commercial comedy, shouldn't they be liable for what they say? Now, take a look at this. Dr. Nanda, from what Rohan has said, from what Manvi said, it seems like humor is guilty until it's proven funny. That's the case that we're dealing with. Humor is absolutely guilty until it's proven funny. जब तक कोई बुरा नहीं मानता, तब तक everything is cool, everything is good to go.
See, I tell you, please don't take it with this with the pinch of salt what the Supreme Court has said today. Commercial or no commercial, you cannot have an absolute right to invade somebody else's right or a right of a community. Here is a right of an individual person making some content on something like that. I am not saying, we are all part of the society. We would love to like and watch all these kind of things. With the progress of media and social media and all that, we are living and ushering into a different kind of world. But then there certainly cannot be an invasion into the rights of other people. Please appreciate this in the name of commercial, no commerce or anything. Please do not invade the right of have-nots. Somebody who doesn't have a voice, you can't just insult them. You just can't just invade their rights. There has to be. I fail to understand how can there be rules and regulations regulating them. This is a self-restraint thing. You have to do a self-restraint, introspect you have to do. Each comedian, each content writer has got this right to speak whatever they want, and people, they have a choice to watch it or not to watch it. But as a matter, I'm not saying as a matter of request, it is as a matter of self-monitoring in this progressing society, that please do not invade or insult somebody else. There can be a situation that you are creating a rift between two communities. Then is there somebody speaking on behalf of those communities, two religious communities, or to any different kind of geographical communities like North India and South India and something like that? Please, there cannot be a straight jacket formula to adjudicate upon as to what is right and what is not. But Article 21 will not prevail in over the Article 19(1)(g). It cannot be absolute. There has to be a reasonable restriction, and that reasonable will depend on situation to situation.
Look at how the community got divided. As soon as Kunal Kamra's poems and those songs came out, the entire community got divided, didn't they? Now, for the politicians, they can come out and say that our Article 21 was under question. Why did you go against our dignity? You defamed us right there on set. But that, compared to comedians punching down on, let's say people with disabilities or specially abled people, that's a complete no-no. I mean, where will the Libra scales tip in whose favor? That's a big question. I'm here asking questions that came to me on my social media. So my next question to Sonalisha, maybe you can help us answer this question. Now, they say, is apology enough? Today, the court said that it is incumbent on the comedians to, in the next hearing, to come and tell us what kind of punishment is okay for them. So is apology enough, or should there really be penal consequences when comedians or influencers, or as a matter of fact, anybody who's partaking in commercial speech, they cross that line? Sonalisha.
I would say that as of now, apology is a good way to start with. Straight away levying penalties on the comedians would not be the right way of handling it. Yes, Supreme Court has very lightly struck a balance between Article 19 and Article 21. But apology at this juncture would serve the purpose, because we would like to understand that comedy is not a sword through which you can hurt the dignity or wound the dignity of a particular community. If that was the case, and if we go by what Karan is saying, ideally is comedy not possible without hurting the sentiments of a person? So what was Jaspal Bhatti doing all these years? Like, we have all been a fan of Jaspal Bhatti's flop show. Was he not a comedian? So are we saying that comedy is only possible, and with only that liberty can we create a show or create TRP or create viewership? We are not talking about complete censorship on what you should say or you should not say. All that the Supreme Court is saying, that you need to be a little civilized, little more aware, and little more vigilant about what you are saying.
And liable for what you utter. And liable for what you utter.
Yes, and you being an influencer, you are being reached out to a huge number of people. Use that reach for something nicer. Comedy can be used for a bigger purposes as well. Just an intent to harm a community is not the way of comedy. Comedy can be done in several manners.
Yeah, absolutely. Manvi, my same question to you that I put across to Rohan as well. For what happened at India's Got Latent show and what Ranveer Allahabadia uttered, are you aware of what the question that he uttered and the entire fiasco over which it happened?
Yes, I do, but I would like to answer the panelists who were talking before me that, madam, the time has changed. You were talking about millennium. Now it's Gen Z time. So you have new audience, you have new concept. What is demand and supply? They are just doing that. If you do shows like Jaspal Bhatti, nobody will buy a ticket, nobody will subscribe it, nobody will like to watch it, and the shows are now consensual based. It is all the consent. It was not something which was posed to him, that whatever questions were asked, it was not posed.
So if nobody buys the ticket, Manviji, if nobody buys the ticket, that doesn't mean that the person's content is bad or good.
No, people are if people will not buy the ticket, then what is the fun? Then why the content creators are creating a show? They will not create a show only, when they're going in loss. Why would they do it?
But there are so many other comedians, there are so many other comics that are still selling out entire shows, and they don't come across as slapstick or, heavily tilting towards the cheap kind of comedy. And you say Gen Z, a lot of Gen Z doesn't mean you hit out at each other. Gen Z doesn't mean misogynistic jokes. Gen Z doesn't mean sexist jokes. Maybe the language changes a little bit, maybe your verbiage changes a little bit, it's more cooler, it's more hip. But what flies for Gen Z can maybe be done for a Gen Z show. But if you put that video out for the entire public to consume, then other people than Gen Z are also watching that on YouTube. And how is that fair on them? They don't know that verbiage. Maybe they're not part of the supply demand that you're talking about here. I mean, am I making a prudent point here, Manvi? I'm just talking out loud.
See, if you're not talking about demand and supply, if you are creating a show which is not in demand, which audience will not like it, they will not appreciate it, they will not buy the show, and the show will be a big flop. Secondly, I would like to say that if you want to create a simple show, just like as ma'am said that Jaswal Bhatti, nobody wants to watch Jaswal Bhatti. That's why I was talking about OTT platform. OTT platform, they crack double meaning joke, they try to pull each other's leg, and people like to watch it because what people like, what is audience? What audience want, the producers create it. What audience wants, the comedians show it. So when there is a consent, I don't think there is a harm. If it is consensual, if the person says, okay, I'm fine, I'm okay with it, you can create a show and you can ask multiple questions about me, whatever, and I am okay with it, then what's the harm? Nobody is
Manvi, I
forcing
would
you
like to say something here. If it is really consensual, it should remain behind the closed doors of the people who have given the consent.
That's
You
exactly
cannot
the
go
point.
out
See,
in
Manvi,
public
people love all kinds of
keep on
comedians, but if
humiliating
you utter
the marginalized community.
something
Ma'am,
in
but there are
public,
so many
then
shows
you're
out there.
liable for
Why
public
don't you point
scrutiny.
out-
That's as
Yes.
it is. From a politician to somebody who gives TEDx speeches, to a comic, to an entertainer, to a movie artist. I mean, so many a times, the dialogues that are uttered on the silver screen also become flashpoints. So on that note, it's great that we're having this discourse because this is not a debate, it's a deliberation. We need to have this to understand how far and long can we push that red line. And that's the sensitivity. That's why we say that that's a great artist. You know, he put his point across without being too sleazy or slapstick about it, even when 80% of the crowd wanted something slapstick. I don't want to take movie names, but you have a group of people who go watch a particular set of movie because they're not worried about the screenplay. They're worried about the dialogues. They're worried about the slapstick humor that comes with it. But then you have other people who would look down upon it and go and watch a different film. That's why you pay for the movie ticket and you go watch your own film. But if it's put out in public glare, then everybody is liable for their own opinion and scrutiny. And just like Advocate, Dr. Nanda was saying.
I would add here, like if you
Very
are
quickly, Dr.
making
Nanda, we're
content-
completely run out of time here.
If you are, I'll just take 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Like if you are making a content, please be responsible for making that content.
Exactly,
It's like
that's the operative part. You've got to be
racing car in
responsible
your
for what
hand.
you're doing.
If you-
Rohan, final 10 seconds. Rohan, final 10 seconds. I got to close the show.
Yeah, that's true that we should be totally responsible for the content that we produce. Yes, but please understand that today people are watching more OTT than movies, right? So the times have changed. We
You're
need to
right.
understand. So
Which is why I'm
content
saying
creators
again and
should be
again,
giving
sensitivity
the-
from both sides. Sensitivity from both sides.
Yeah.
But the person who's uttering those words has to be just a little bit more sensitive. On that note, completely run out of time. I've overshot. I have the PCR speaking in my ear. On that note, Rohan, Manvi, thank you so much, Dr. Nanda and Sonali Shah, for speaking to us here in your interest. We're going to wrap this up. Top developments right on the other side. But then again, think for yourselves. Should you laugh at someone or should you laugh with someone? That's the biggest question. Many thanks for watching.
Maya, what do you like the most?
I love my Doda. Papa, let's go to Doda. Happy birthday, Doda. Doda. Go, Doda, go.
Even I love my Doda.
I love my Doda. Doda. I love my Doda.
Chandigarh, Coimbatore, NCR and Bangalore, Jaipur, Ahmedabad, Raipur and Hyderabad. We've been here, we've been there, Veka's been just everywhere.
रिटायरमेंट के बाद लाल स्पोर्ट्स कार लूं या वर्ल्ड टूर?
तू खाली पुलाव ना, मैं ऑर्डर करूँ।
पुलाव नहीं, प्लान। लाइफ इंश्योरेंस का रिटायरमेंट प्लान, गारंटीड पेंशन के साथ।
सपनों को रखो सुरक्षित रिटायरमेंट प्लान के साथ। सबसे पहले लाइफ इंश्योरेंस।
Love makes you go the distance. Unlimited Love. The B6 Pack 2 starts at 21.9 lakh.
What is To the Nines? In literal terms, it's perfection. But to us, it's not just a phrase, it's an attitude. One that starts at your desk and sends a statement to the world. To the Nines is about taking charge. It's a way of life where every seam, every fold, is crafted with excellence. It's timeless elegance and uncompromising quality made for the corner office. It's the ideas that inspire redefining order and elevating the tabletop. To the Nines, for the leaders of today and the visionaries of tomorrow.
This is India's #1 news network, and you're watching News 9, English news as it should be.
The shocking Dowry murder of Nikki from Greater Noida in the National Capital Region has exposed a grim tale of greed and family pressures, with the Mercedes car owned by Nikki's family emerging as a significant trigger. Despite Nikki's family giving her husband Vipin a Scorpio car and a bullet bike, he and his brother allegedly fixated on acquiring a new Mercedes car. Nikki's sister Kanchan frequently posted Instagram reels featuring their Mercedes, which Vipin and his family strongly disapproved of, often leading to heated arguments. Their objection to these reels and persistent demands for the Mercedes car added fuel to the ongoing family tensions. Vipin allegedly set Nikki on fire in front of their 6-year-old son. Vipin was arrested after a police encounter left him injured and is now in a 14-day judicial custody. All 3 other arrested accused, the deceased Nikki's father-in-law, mother-in-law and brother-in-law, have also been remanded to a 14-day judicial custody. Nikki's mother-in-law Dayavati was arrested recently, and the police are actively searching for more accused family members. Nikki's brother-in-law Rohit, who was arrested earlier this morning. During the interrogation, Vipin claimed that Nikki's death was a suicide, and he dismissed their dispute as normal marital fights. The National Commission for Women has taken serious cognizance of the case and emphasized immediate arrests, strict legal action and protection for Nikki's family and witnesses.
हमारे साथ एनसीडब्ल्यू चीफ विजय राटकर जी हैं। मैम, आपने सुना कि किस तरह की घटना सामने आई ग्रेटर नोएडा में। निक्की हत्याकांड जो है, दहेज के लिए उसकी परिवार ने जलाकर हत्या कर दी, उस पर आपने सुमोटो कॉग्निजेंस भी लिया है।
जी, राष्ट्रीय महिला आयोग ने इसका संज्ञान लिया है और इस विषय पे हमने तुरंत संज्ञान लेते हुए उत्तर प्रदेश डीजीपी को हमने लिखा है कि वो इस केस को तुरंत सॉल्व करे, कड़ी से कड़ी कार्रवाई अभी तुरंत करे और जो भी दोषी है उनको वो गिरफ्तार करते हुए आगे की कार्रवाई करे। तो अभी 4 लोग तो गिरफ्तार हो चुके हैं और इसमें पुलिस तेजी